see they're getting high tech, but now.
I know, I saw that.
Or,
That's a new thing.
yeah.
What'd you find to eat?
I just went with the thing I had online, the chicken spaghetti.
Oh, yeah?
I had heard about it recently. Apparently, it's supposed to be like the Kansas
City
thing.
Italian
Yeah,
thing.
So
Yes, it is.
I just feel like hunting around to see. So
You thought you'd just try it.
yeah, just go for it. Didn't feel like whatever fish they had on the menu.
Catfish?
As they always have.
I know,
They
they
make
have it.
catfish in two places. The Asian line.
Yes, they do it on Wednesdays.
Catfish or salmon.
Uh-huh.
Always.
Yes,
So,
I do like it though.
every once in a while. After a while, it's the.
Yeah.
So they have those quinoa bowls.
Yes, the quinoa bowl. Oh, it's
I
good.
love quinoa bowls. You know, I had so much salmon the first month and a half there that
Exactly.
my husband made it and was like, I made salmon, I know how to cook. I'm like, I
Yeah,
do love
We have
salmon.
salmon every day.
I was like, I do love salmon.
And
I do like it.
just enough for tonight. I think I have $4 or something for tonight.
Oh, do you?
Mhm.
What do you usually get, like a sandwich or something?
Yeah, usually. In the nighttime, it's much more, bare bones. So
Yes,
we'll see.
this is very true.
Could always bring something to supplement from home.
Yeah. Yeah. I have done that.
So the kids have a good time on Saturday.
I did. My son was surprised that he had fun.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I like because
Yeah.
you brought your toys with you and people played with you.
Yeah. Had more kids to play with.
Mm-hmm. I think Denise played badminton with them.
And then Claudia was giving hugs to everyone.
I know.
Like, it's really.
I was like, is this my child? She can be standoffish with people she doesn't know. And more shy. I guess she felt like she knew people, so my daughter gave everybody a hug.
Yeah, that was.
I was kind of surprised by that.
Well, she started out so shy,
Yeah.
but then she was.
She warms up. Yeah. She's really come out of her shell too recently. More so.
So she's in kindergarten now?
She will be, yeah. She went to summer school. They had summer school
More
for
kids.
6 weeks.
More kids to play with.
Mm-hmm. Well, she did, she was like not so sure at first, but it turned out fine. She ends up being like the teacher's favorite.
Teacher's pet.
Kind of, yes. Which I was never, ever. I was just not like that. I was so shy.
How did I take so long?
I don't know, Linda.
I just,
Were you right behind?
I was, but I think I
was.
went and got something to drink and a cookie. That's all you got?
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, I need to remember the plans, but I have stuff from the weekend.
I came with an arsenal of food. It was like I had popcorn and I had, my kids bought cookies before they left and I had their cookies.
I just measuring out, I have $4 and change for tonight.
Oh.
One more meal
One more.
in July.
Yeah, I ran out.
I ran out last week. What is
I
that?
think
That
it
looks
was
good.
27
Is
cents.
that catfish? Oh. I like that. Yeah, I didn't ever think I would do that. Something about just river fish and catfish, I just thought, ew. But it was
So
really good.
I've never done IPR while eating before, but okay.
No worries.
I figured y'all be eating together anyway, so.
Truth.
I'm gonna have to leave at like 10 till, cause I have prayers today, so
Okay.
we'll go to 10 till and
Sounds good.
eat our lunch. So you got quinoa too?
Mm-hmm. I love these.
That's
I
fairly
love these
new.
bowls. I will just say that I'm so used to making stuff like this, and this is a lot, so this is very calorie dense.
Mhm.
So you think, well, it's healthy, but there's a lot of calories here. I'm gonna make you start.
Oh, Ken, you're on the
I'm
spot.
on the spot.
No, I shouldn't have said it that way.
That's fine. I mean, we don't have to talk about last week if you don't want. I just want to say, thank you for sharing, and to me, it meant a lot with how much trust that we have as a group. And I mean, like I said, we don't have to talk about it more, but I just wanted to thank you for that. And I feel like we've really grown, all of us together.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. That section, it was an article that we read, and the title of it was "Trust is the Bridge to Honesty," or something. I wrote it down in my final evaluation, and it was one of the
One of the
articles.
articles that we read.
And I just thought, I have never been in a group where I felt a lot of, I trusted everybody. I trusted everybody. Not that you're gonna keep it a secret. I mean, I have no power over how you take that information, but I trusted that I wasn't gonna be judged. And I didn't feel that, so thank you. It's just been a lifelong thing of just feeling like I couldn't ever share that because people would think of me differently. And thank you.
And I find it interesting, I mean, just thinking about trust and the trust we have, and I feel like, I trust this group more than even some, redemptorist circles, and I mean, redemptorists, unfortunately sometimes like to gossip, so there can be a lot of that sometimes.
Yeah, I appreciated you sharing too. I know it had to have been really, really hard for you to share that. But as far as, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but it's not something we'll share with anybody, or that there's no need for us to share that with anybody else. And you talked this morning about it being a process, and I think, hopefully it opened the door a little so you can heal. Not that you're ever, I don't want to, that's not the way I meant that. I mean, it is, there's a final thing to that, but just, when you've shared about your life and all the things that you've been through, and there's been this kind of door, and for you to allow yourself, regardless if you would have told anyone or not, that you opened yourself to the process and went through it and put your trust in all of that is really big. In the amount of time that we're together.
I know.
That's not lost on me at all, but that's a lifetime of stuff, and it's only been 10 weeks.
I know.
Developed in that short of time.
I know, that's why it felt really special, but I realized, I don't feel like crying, so don't worry, I could do that. I feel like that when I was putting together that thing, and there was just a bunch that I didn't add to my genealogy, but it was just how that was a big event in my life that I'm trying to push out and say it didn't happen. But it has affected a lot of things in my life. And some of it's positive, so I will fight forever for a woman's right to choose. But I don't know. That's what the process I'm working out, but
What's the impact when you hear someone's story on you? I guess this is kind of to hear Linda and Stephanie talk about what's the impact. And your patients. I mean, when we hear people's stories, their secrets, what's the impact?
For me, it's so easy when you turn on the TV, because you talk about the TV. I felt the same way with the Me Too movement this last year. It's been really incredibly hard. Or anytime an NBA star, someone's accused of sexual assault, or and then the whole thing plays again. But it's when I hear the stories and when I sit with patients, the impact is that things are not as easy. There's a lot of gray, and it's easy to judge. It's easy like without knowing any of those things from an typical standard outside person not connected to any of this.
right.
It's easy to have those judgments rush into your head, but when you hear these stories, and it makes it so much more real. And I have someone close to me that went through a similar thing, and I was her closest friend through it. In fact, she told my mom before she told me that she was pregnant, which I thought was, yeah. Wow.
I don't think I would have done that.
So just, more awareness, and it's also just, as we share with our stories and our genealogy and all that, none of us have the perfect family, and to drop that facade and to just be real. And it hurts to sit down and admit things about your family that you don't like.
Yeah.
I think we want to think that we have the perfect family, but there's all this out on our flaws.
But we also look at other people and think that they have the perfect family.
Right.
I think when patients, what I've taken from this too is, for the longest time, I was so worried that I had to be like this perfect chaplain, which I'm not anything close to, and I know I fall short every day. But I've also seen that the patients that see a little bit more of the real me are drawn to that. They want that more than they want like the perfect chaplain.
They do.
They want someone
They don't want the perfect chaplain?
They don't want the perfect.
They want a real person.
want someone who's
recite the Bible and you've done everything correctly and you've never had fun in your life.
Yeah, that's what my idea.
That's just.
I think there's that. There's also, I've encountered a lot that they want us to be the ones, chaplain's here, it's time to pray, time to get religious, and not talking about sometimes avoiding the heavy stuff and just focusing on the superficial. But also at the same time, there's those that, it's amazing, how they open up to us, and, we're a complete stranger to them, and opening up about whatever it is that's weighing on them.
It feels like I've been giving, I don't know, the right word, sacred privilege. I have some privileged information that is so personal and so deep, and to be somebody, like you said, and I'll never forget about our patients ordaining us. And for them to be comfortable sharing, anybody, people in this group, and just our patients, that it feels Like I used to hear people say that funerals were the most humbling and sacred thing that they'd ever done. And so when somebody shares a really deep part of themselves with me that's true, and I'm just hard, maybe it feels like I've been given a piece of very sacred information, and I want to hold it.
Sacred privilege, I like that.
A lot of times, it may be something that's known to their families, and other times it may be, we may be the first person they're telling about this thing, so. Be there for those, important moments, and for them it can be, life changing to tell this to someone.
And life-giving,
Uh-huh.
kind of thing. That's how I experienced you last week. Even though it was extremely difficult to share. But I saw it as an attempt at life. That seems odd, but
It's an attempt to move on.
to grasp life,
Right.
to move towards life, and to move towards trust and
Yeah,
transparency and honesty.
and embrace the messiness, I guess, because I have a hard time with it. Yeah. I just say, yeah. My goal in my head is always that my life will be so organized, because I'm not.
How's that working
so
for you?
that-
my goal.
And it is.
Is that your goal, kid?
Oh, mine is so to have a very organized
I mean,
house.
I might have those tendencies, part of the whole perfectionism thing that I have, but I wouldn't say it's like in the forefront of my mind, but I think, it's kind of started to learn to embrace the messiness and our faults and failings. And I mean, there was a book I had read a while ago, probably should have reread it for this, Henry Nouwen's The Wounded Healer.
Oh, that is such a good.
Yeah, and there's that recognizing that all of us are messed up somehow.
That is really
Some way,
good
but-
book.
To try to embrace that messiness and to help ourselves and to help others.
Right.
So as a way to deal with the messiness, you seek organization or.
I do. It doesn't work. I try to be disciplined. I try to organize my drawers, and I'll stay that way. It's just been a struggle. It's just, I can fall asleep at night. I can relax thinking about how I'm gonna reorganize my closet. It never happens. That relaxes me for some reason.
Putting it in order.
Yeah.
For me, I think in the back of my mind, I have, my mom's voice, clean up your room. Even I tend to, try to get it somewhat in order, but like my desk is the kind of space, it'll be a mess, but I'll still be able to find everything. So for me, it's clean enough that I can still know where things are at, and still it won't get out of hand. So if it does get out of hand, then I'll try to get things in order. But always in the back of my mind, there's that.
The mom voice.
The mantra, clean up your room.
Right. And why is organization better than non-organization? I mean, I can see that you can function better, but there is this analogy that, and I'm seeing this change in my life as I get older, that I've always had a clean house on the outside, so that when people come, they see this real organization. But my drawers, I don't.
But don't look in your closets or your
Don't look in my
drawers.
closets, don't look in my cabinets, go down to my basement or my garage. What you see right here is what I want you to see.
So it's a presentation.
And I had some company, in the last year that I was really worried about, because she's getting it off of her floors, and my sister-in-law's that way. But I'm gradually getting to that point that I just let it go. I didn't care. So I'm starting to let people see inside of my closets, I guess. I don't
What
know.
an interesting metaphor.
I know.
That is, I mean, we try to hide the bad stuff,
Uh-huh.
sweep it under the rug. And,
Surely only the
yeah.
presentable, clean,
Really,
organized parts.
I don't fold my t-shirts. I throw them in a drawer. I have to iron them.
But you ironed them though.
I do. No, I asked my husband to because I hate iron, so. But I don't, and my shoe floor is just, I mean, I don't do that. But on the outside, if somebody's coming to my house, I think a lot of people are like that though, a little bit.
I don't know, I'm not really someone that looks in people's closets. There are people that do that, but I've never been one of those people.
I know, but do you fold your t-shirts?
And you're. I wouldn't say I fold them well, but I fold them. It's an attempt at folding. But I think that's an interesting metaphor that you're bringing up as how we present ourselves to the world and what's the impact of that, If can people get close to us? I guess, can they relate to us? Kind of going on with this idea of if we're presenting this perfect.
We want to put up this facade that everything's great and jolly, but
Uh-huh.
inside, if it's the complete opposite. So usually I think it's whatever's inside, that's how we really display ourselves, not the shiny outside.
Yeah.
I was raised that way, like my dad, my mom is not organized at all. Which is interesting now that my dad's sick, because just one of my sisters who look like tornadoes hit their bedrooms are like, we gotta do something. But my dad was all about appearance, and
Really?
not appearance itself, like, he was blue collar worker, jeans, all that, but when it came to the house, everything had to be, and I never understood it until I was in high school, and then I realized how museum-like that my grandmother's house was like. I mean, never, the one that just passed away, her house was always immaculately clean, never even looked like anybody lived there at all, ever. But then I found out that, they would get spankings and with a belt, and,
Oh, wow.
my grandma would go through, and if they did everything, but the rug had dirt under it, they'd get a spanking with the belt for that and have to start all over, and just, he didn't tell me any of that until I was like in college, which I thought was interesting, it's an interesting dynamic for me because I grew up thinking, well, we always did everything on that grandparents' house, not my other side, which they were very disconnected and dysfunctional, both sides. But it never really hit me until I was older, and as I started thinking about getting married and things like that, but suddenly my dad was more willing to disagree with my grandmother, because we'd have, even as adults, we'd have family reunions, and the Labor Day, if we weren't in by 5 o'clock for dinner from water skiing, grandma would have a conniption, and my dad would just go ballistic. And I got yelled at many times because the boat didn't come in on time, or, but it was just that weird dynamic that everything had to be okay. And then to see all the layers of dysfunction and not so perfect layers underneath.
I wonder if that's something that maybe parents try to hide from their kids to make the parents, send a message to the kids that all's well in the kingdom and we don't have anything bad going on, but.
That was my house.
I think my dad just tried to hide it and stuff it, he just tried to, and especially after my after my uncle died, because he was only in his 20s, so just an interesting, but everyone wants to portray the perfect picture.
I know.
But I think it's been interesting too with patients, how sometimes you don't have to say anything. Like, I've had 3 patients say, I wasn't gonna say damn thing to a chaplain. One of them or two. I was gonna say a damn thing to a chaplain, but there's something about you. Like I haven't even said it.
But we're the chaplain.
Looked at me and I just suddenly started talking.
That's good.
But we pick up on those people. Like I think
I was about to say, we do, yeah.
you can kind of, well, like an example, the chaplains that say something in the elevator or look at patients versus those that don't. And
Yeah.
I love watching chaplains and doctors and nurses interact and how they do and don't. Likes people watch. But I do find it interesting, back to what you were saying, that how fast we did connect really well from the beginning.
What do you think that was about? Why do you think that was?
Well, we were all scared to death because we're in this together.
Was there an event? I'm just curious, was there a time that you can pinpoint or that, an activity or something that was going on or?
Well, the first thing that sticks out would be our day at Hollis,
Hollis.
but I wonder if we even started connecting before then.
Yeah.
I mean, Hollis is, visible because we were all working together. It was different, working together, different strategies, but maybe even earlier that week.
For me, it was when we got in trouble for laughing. Like when we were in that room, on our first day when we were getting our badge, and that lady we didn't get in trouble, but she shut the door because we were too loud.
Leanne did?
Yeah, when she shut the door, you were in there, you were with us. And then we laughed really loud.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember, it
And I
wasn't even
laughed
anything
loud.
too funny.
There's that, or I don't know if the tour with Mark was before Hollis or not.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was
That could be bonded over Mark Jesky.
Y'all bonded over Mark Jesky.
You were my like, you brought me to, because I was having well, first of all, Jake wasn't helping, because Jake was just like looking like, he kept doing this, and everything I wear on my face, I worked really hard on that. Everything you wear, and he kept doing that, and then Denise was like, okay, we're gonna, and then there was you.
Directing.
You kept me balanced.
Mark was
It was a disaster.
trying to lead.
Okay, just, it was a disaster in a good, fun way. But.
I think sometimes too, that the stars just align, I mean, I don't mean that in some magical way. I'm just saying that sometimes you roll the dice and you get a good thing. And I've tried to ask myself how we connected, and first of all, we're all in something that's really touchy-feely, and so, but we are all different ages, kind of. And so the spread in age group might have helped us connect. I don't know if there would have, I don't know. But I just had to finally just say, it just worked out that this was a providential thing, that we came together. Not that I don't believe that, I have a hard time believing that God would say, okay, I'm gonna pick these 5 people and put them together. Because there's surely, I feel like that we're having some cracks. I feel like that we're having some of that, but.
Which is normal.
Yeah, but I think that there's.
What would be the cracks? If you would feel so brave as to say.
Take you learning to the next level.
Well, I'm talking about cracks in the group.
I know. I think that's what you're talking about.
I don't feel.
I know not everybody's here. So
Right,
if
not
you would rather.
everybody's here, and I'm just gonna say that when I read I was really upset. It was late at night and I read I read Denise's thing, and I felt that, I don't know, I don't feel right saying it right now, but it was just uncomfortable for me, and I felt bad for, Stephanie. So that was my first reaction, and so, but I would like to have a chance for her to be here when we do something, because it
Well, we'll talk about
might
it.
have been able to be handled differently. So that was when I just thought, okay, we're having, if we were together for another 10 weeks, how would that,
Stuff comes out.
yeah,
I
stuff.
mean, we
sometimes
don't say
you
the
can't
perfect
help
thing.
it. Yeah. I reacted to it in a really, I don't, well, I just reacted to it, wrong or right. I think mad was the word that I can think of, so, or sort of felt betrayed by our assuming the best from others, giving grace. And maybe it had, and, honesty, there was an honest statement, but maybe, I don't know.
I wonder if your loyalty got triggered.
Yeah, it did. That's my big thing. Yeah, so,
I think with, when something's in writing, it's hard to understand the context. I see that all the time, someone sends me
When
a
the text
text
message.
message and it's like, how am I supposed to take this,
really, that's what I think emojis are for.
Yeah.
Put an emoji on there, okay?
Yeah.
Who
I
knows?
don't know if we want
But
to.
even then,
I was gonna say, there's crap emojis.
yeah, that's a
So,
good
yeah.
observation. But it's easy to misconstrue
Yeah.
or to read meaning into what someone has written.
And I think I had that on my mind when we did our mid-unit evaluations. At least when we discussed, we had a chance to talk about, not defend, but back up what we said in our, legal statements. So, when we talk in person, there's a lot more dynamic than just writing it on paper. So, I don't know, what her, thinking was, but that would be something to explore at another time.
Sure. So it's kind of the assuming thing, maybe not assuming that we know what.
Right.
Yeah, my honesty was triggered a little just because I feel like my buzzword this time has been authenticity and vulnerability. And I felt like I've been really vulnerable and like true to who I like. I don't want to say that because that sounds like I'm saying that. I just think that I felt kind of attacked, but just surprised. I think once she's here, I'd like a chance if we get that opportunity to explore it more. I think for me, it wasn't what was said; it was just feeling blown away by it, and blown away by it, and then a statement made in a way that made it sound like other people agreed to that too. And so speaking for other people, and that was hard. I read it in the middle of a really, like my 24-hour shift was nothing but death and violence. Like it really was. It was like 2 code blues, 2 deaths on a walk. The guy had to have his ID taken out so he could be arrested and tackled to the ground. And it was just and a migraine. And so
So you had a filter,
Yeah, my filter
maybe in
was
how you're
gone.
hearing it. I mean, I understand how you're
Definitely.
responding to that.
Definitely. And I read it 3 times. And yeah.
But I got that same thing when I read it, so.
And I was heartbroken, I'm not gonna lie. I was like really, I felt shame and heartbreak and devastated. Not even to be accused, not just to be accused. It wasn't that as much as it's like I started like analyzing every single interaction we've had. And then just feeling, no one else was involved in that, obviously. It was one person's writing, but I suddenly felt disconnected to everyone.
So it had a lot of power.
It had a
You
lot.
gave it a lot of power.
I gave it a
You
lot
gave
of
Denise
power.
a lot of power.
Yeah, I gave it a lot of power. I mean, I will readily admit that I gave it a lot of power. And I also struggled with my whole, I put this in my reflection actually, I struggled with my whole, how do I fix it? Like immediately, I recognized it right away, but it was the like, this may be something I can't fix. And then, and sometimes that's gonna happen, we're not gonna, I was gonna say we're not everyone's cup of tea. But
We're not.
yeah, but that was hard, just feeling,
Do you think that you're able to reach every patient in this hospital?
no, I don't think so.
No.
I'd like to.
Well, you want to, but
Yeah.
the reality is, and I think that was one of the most freeing things that I found in ministry, when I recognized that I could reach people other people couldn't, but that I could not reach everyone. And that was okay. Yeah. Is it okay?
So,
Yeah.
yesterday, I was charting on a patient that Jane had seen. So I wanted to go back and see what kind of experience she had. So I went back and read her chart.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different than mine. She had this man opened up to her. He was like to me, and that was like, what did I really need to see what I'm missing here, you know? So it was just one of those things where I felt less than Jane, you know?
Staff chaplain who's been
Been chaplain for over 5 years.
Well,
And
but
it was like, why didn't I tried, because people said, we're having a lot of problems. I knew his history, I talked to the nurse. I went in there, failure. Came back to, and I thought, I didn't know Jane had seen him. I saw that somebody had seen him, so I went back and read the chart, and the totally opposite experience that I had had. And so it was just one of those things, I didn't feel less than, it was just one of those things like, oh, what did I do wrong, you know?
maybe you didn't do anything wrong.
I know.
Maybe you didn't want to talk to
So
you.
that's just what you were saying.
Yeah. Or maybe, you know, he wasn't feeling good. I mean,
Right.
There's just
Or
so,
he opened up once and why the heck did he have to?
and he wasn't gonna do it again.
No.
Or, yeah, I mean, maybe Jane looked like his mother. I don't know. I mean, there's a million different reasons why it could be, and we could really beat ourselves up
Right.
about.
Yeah, because I went to a whole other level that night. Just of like, well, maybe I shouldn't be a chaplain, or maybe this is like,
So really, you took that
I
shame on.
totally
So you were giving her a lot of power to take that.
yeah, I
So
agree with
she
that.
now decides whether or not you're a
Well,
chaplain.
no, not now.
Sometimes you just want to,
It was just the initial, like, it was just hard because,
So I wonder if this group has an unspoken rule.
we don't say anything bad about it.
around conflict and around. I'm throwing that out there.
yes,
Because I've
and
experienced
no.
this group is very nice, very nice. What's the payoff for that? And then also, what are you missing? Because do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I feel like you're reacting, and I'm just throwing this out there, I could be wrong.
Yes.
But I feel a lot of your reaction is, she wasn't being nice. It didn't feel nice.
Yeah.
Some of
not
it, and
really.
maybe too late, and maybe just later, why not earlier rather than later?
Yeah, I think it was
But-
more later than, because I'm not always a nice person in my past, like, because, we've kind of shared that here, when I went through the stuff in my younger years and assaulted, and I was very angry.
Mhm.
You talked about throwing things, I threw things. I slammed my car door so hard it shattered. The day that I lost my child, my dad had broken his ribs from a four-wheeling accident, and I lashed out so bad when I got home that I re-cracked his ribs, like little me. Yeah, I mean, I didn't try to beat him up or anything. It was just that I totally, and I lived in a house where that wasn't okay. I mean, my dad was probably more of that than my mom, but my mom was just like, you have to just like stifle it. And even going into ministry, like if I would get into an argument with her, and my mom and I love my mom, but it's hard. And we would get into an argument and she would say, now remember, if you're a church person or you're clergy, you can't have feelings like that. And all that did is like make me more angry and mad and raging. And so yes and no, because I do, like, I think that's what got me, is I felt like my interaction with that wasn't real, like.
What do you mean?
Well, it kind of like glazed over the past 10 weeks of, I don't know, just like that someone didn't feel safe enough. I don't know, safe enough's not.
Would
the
you
right
have felt safe enough to say the first week you were here?
Not the first
together?
week.
What about
But maybe before it was written. Like before, I don't know if it would have came out in a group setting, but I think I would have done it before it got to that form. Like I think for me personally, it would have felt different. Like it wasn't what was said, it was just how I found out about it.
So it felt underhanded.
Yeah, kind of like one more, and honestly, I felt like I was the only one criticized.
That's what I saw. And.
Do you know what we're talking
Yeah,
about? I don't know if you had the chance to read.
I kind of glanced over, yeah. So.
And so I don't wanna erase what she feels, like because I struggle with that too, that I can't, when we start bringing dynamics of culture and ethnicity and all those things in the picture, I'm trying really hard to use my lens of I told everybody I took an IPD, Identity, Power, and Difference class, and it's all about how we all oppress, and it's like down to you literally are torn apart and then built back together. And so I've tried really hard not to be judgmental with that, but it felt very hard. It felt like I didn't really have a right to feel the way I felt when I read it that night, because my eyes may see it differently than her eyes.
Because she's black and you're white.
And I don't want it to appear that it's, that I'm, I want to say racist or what right do I have to judge based on her feeling? She's still, I can't erase her feeling.
No, but your feelings, from what I've heard you say, is what's the impact, how you have felt in the way that it was how this critique was given to you.
Yeah.
In a vacuum of anyone else getting critiqued and in written form. And maybe you would have rather her have said that to you in person.
Yeah.
So
it would have been okay on paper. I would have been okay still on paper, I think. It was just not knowing and really not feeling that it, just having no idea. I obviously own, and I have owned that. I talk a lot, a lot. And I've shared towards the end that sometimes it's a deflector, sometimes, it is authentic, I do like to talk. But I've never meant to overpower or to stifle. And so I guess it was just the whole wow, I felt like what I was reading it as was the question on the dynamic of this group. And I was labeled as that dynamic on that question. And so I think that's where, I feel like if it would have been anywhere else, it would have been a little different, but it was that what group dynamics, and I was labeled as the dynamic, which I took negative, whether it was meant to or not. So.
Well, equally, the dynamic could have been raised who doesn't talk.
No.
And I don't know, Ken, would you have gone to shame if that had been named?
I don't know about shame. I mean, the biggest takeaway I think is just the forum that it was presented. I think, you know, that's sort of what she said was more, would have been better suited for like go direct person to person rather than for the whole, you know, like you said, kind of like you're saying, like labeling the whole group dynamic as that. And, you know, she was, you know, I think she did address, you know, the kind of the gender divide about, you know, how the men speak less, which I don't disagree with because kind of is how it is, but just the way it came out just seems, you know, wrong for that second.
That's how I felt.
I think where I ended with it was just, I mean, it's not how I ended with it, but is that I think what I would have done in that situation, I think I don't know if I would have, like, maybe one-on-one, but also it may have came up, like, I think I would have felt comfortable enough bringing it up in our group discussions like this
Yeah.
thing, you know? I would have been okay with that.
Bringing
But,
that,
like, talking about it during our
Right,
group,
yeah.
sure, I would have been okay with it, because I think that's what, I just remember saying from the very beginning, like, I know I'm not perfect, and I know I have a lot of flaws and a lot of learning. And if there was something that I need to be working on, I remember saying, I want to be called out, like I really do. Because the second part of that, separate from all that, came from just like, if I would have been called out on it, then I could have worked on it. You know, if that truly is the way it is, then I would have at least, because I have tried really hard after we've had conversations, of dominating conversation or giving you space, and I tried really hard after that to make sure, you know, I even asked her if she wanted to speak the other day, and it's not just to, you know, check it off because that's what we're supposed to do, but because I'm really trying to change behavior that I really had not seen completely. I knew I talk a lot. But I didn't see the whole dynamic of what my talk was saying, and completely, as much as I have while we've been here. So.
well, I'm wondering if so this dynamic was named in a forum that obviously wasn't helpful. But I'm still hearing, and then, yeah, I do agree that this discussion would be better if everyone was here, but, and I hope that we will, I'm sure that we will talk about it next week.
No, we will.
During our final evaluations. But I'm just struck by, you've given this group a lot of responsibility. And you've put it on them. And I feel like, and I'm just, you put the responsibility on it. You tell me when I'm doing something.
Yeah, I don't need to.
Well, I'm just saying
That's
that's a dynamic
Mm-hmm.
that you've put the responsibility on your peers. And you've asked your peers to help you change this behavior that's not going to go away overnight in 1 unit of CPE.
Right.
So I'm wondering how realistic it is. And I also hear what's getting stirred as she outed me in front of everybody. Maybe there's some embarrassment or shame around that. And I don't know. I mean,
Not really that part, because
No.
I really would have been okay with
You
it
would have
if
been
it came
okay.
up in this. Like, I really would have been okay with that in this setting.
Yeah.
And I think, again, how I'm feeling today about it is much better than
Different
the other
than-
day, because I was so, and also that day was so raw anyway. Like, that was the day you shared. That was the day the wrong thing happened, and
the person from Silver Lake that
yeah,
I
and
finally saw.
yeah,
Which
and so
colors the reaction.
it does.
Because I went and read it and I was like, is it really that harsh? I didn't think it was, but You experienced it that way, you did too, and you did too, so that's why I asked the question of, is there an unspoken rule in this group
I would hope not.
that we don't call somebody out? I don't know,
So
or,
this is
I don't know.
This is how I read it, and so I can't speak for Stephanie. If she was saying those things about me, if every dynamic was the same, except I was the one that talked too much and I was the one that had, I felt, and this is what I would say to her, I would have felt, that it wasn't nice, so you're right, that wasn't very nice, and I'm all about nice, and just, that it wasn't very nice, but just the being singled out.
So the
And being
singled out
embarrassed.
piece.
The singled out piece and embarrassed, because I've been told that I talk a lot, and so that would have really, if she would have said that, that would have been embarrassment and shame. I mean, embarrassment and shame to me are almost the same thing.
Well, they go together.
Yeah, and so that's how I would have felt, because it was just, there was nothing else about,
Anyone else.
if we were in a system, I like equity, and so if we were in a group where we're sharing what's wrong with everybody,
Which kind of was, then it would have been felt more fair.
it would have felt more fair, and so I felt that it was unfair, and I felt a little.
So another dynamic could have been that nobody else said anything to you about this dynamic.
Oh, there was a little bit of that too. I don't want to give her all the power. There was a little bit.
I mean, how does the group share in
initial-
this? Kind of back to that question of when the women were saying,
Right.
when Jake pointed out that the women were the ones dominating conversation. And it was like, is it all their responsibility? Is it all your responsibility? I mean,
Hardly
it's kind of-
almost, it's
Yeah.
not.
I think for
on
me,
one
it
person.
honestly just, it wasn't what was said. Of course, that bothers me, like terribly so. Like it really does. That has nothing to do with her. That part is my own. I'm just like, that I didn't catch that sooner or whatever. I think for me, it was just because it was listed as a major dynamic in our group, it just, I think I put the expectation too high that it would have been said, that it would have been safe enough to say out loud. Like, it would not have had to have been one-on-one with me. I was okay that it was done. It just hit me in a really bad time, but also, and honestly, I was also initially that night was upset because I was like, man, I got really vulnerable last week, like more so, and I let my emotions go more than I have this entire time. And so it felt kind of like, it would have been easy to like put the wall back up and been like, okay, well, I'm just gonna shut my mouth and not say anything the rest of this time here, because like it was not easy to share any of that. And I don't mean that should be like special, don't say anything, because I don't mean that at all, but the timing of it just was like, it was another blow. I was already down and out, like honestly. So, yeah, and like I said, there's so many dynamics to it, and I was already feeling that there was something weird going on. So I think
that's feeding into
that feeds into it.
Which I think is worth checking out
Yeah.
next week and sharing where how the timing and how that timing felt.
Yeah.
And then certainly the rest of the group,
Yeah, I think.
how they've received and
I
experienced.
think the timing was a big part of it. I mean, it wasn't addressed, I don't know how long, how many weeks, but just to come at the end of the year.
Yeah,
It felt like a
The final-
low blow at
We
the
were
end.
done.
The final
We were
evaluation,
done at the end, and there was an escape. She's not here this week.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so
there
she
was a
didn't
little
Doorknob
tiny bit of that.
communication is what we call that in social work.
There was
When
a
people
tiny-
are standing, you're standing at the door, you're in a patient room, oh, chaplain, I didn't tell you. And then, oh, but I gotta go.
Yeah.
And then they drop a bombshell and then leave. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah, so it's, I'm better, I feel better about it this week, and I'm not like, it still bothers me. I would be lying if I said it didn't bother me. And I own in my reflection that I have to learn, how do I put that? I can't fix anything, I know that. But it's harder when things like this you want to try to fix, And it's also like, it's the end, so my thought afterwards, like, how much power do I put into this when we're getting ready to disperse and go but again, it's that nice thing, that part probably comes in there. Like how real, like how much energy do you put into this when we're gonna go our separate ways and you don't wanna stir a pot that's.
And maybe it's easier to say at the end.
Yeah. Before we're about to sing.
I mean, I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Right before we sing.
I cut you off, Linda, I'm sorry. You were about to say I felt something and I cut you off.
No, I was just saying how I felt when I read it. I honestly thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how Stephanie's gonna take this, and so I felt, maybe, I don't know, I just felt like that it was an inappropriate place to say it, and I felt like she was singled out. So those are the two things. There could have been a different way to communicate to her. It didn't have to be in a group dynamic, and that it was singled out. Nobody likes to be standing by themselves in a puddle of shame or embarrassment. Nobody likes that. And so that's how I would have felt. So that's how I took it. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I like I said, I was reading and I got my email popped up and I started reading it. So I was kind of wide-eyed about it. But I also was feeling very, last week was
not a
good.
great
It
week.
was not a good week at
And
all.
I
So
had
it's
a
really
meeting
hard.
last night with a mentor that happens to know Ron, and he questioned why I wasn't at South, and I tried to be as delicate as possible without giving details and without bashing Ron. And this guy, my mentor, that's been through me through this whole thing, that I don't know very well, but I mean, that's what he's been there for me. He's the archdeacon of our diocese. Said, well, he's a pretty solid guy. He'll probably understand all of this, but he didn't know all of the story. So he just thought that there was some administrative issues, and
The archdeacon?
the archdeacon, he
said
doesn't.
that Ron was a solid guy. I'm just confused. What did he say?
He said, well, Ron's a pretty solid guy. He'll probably understand why you're leaving there or whatever. He says, I don't know what happened, but I said, let me just tell you, I did not get along with Ron very well. I don't know how I said it. I said, I struggled with my relationship with Ron. And so my conversation after that with this guy, who I've had a really good relationship with, lost altitude. And I wrapped it up and went home and felt horrible the rest of the night. Because I don't know what's happening in this diocese, I don't know what kind of, it's just really, and I haven't been able to.
You broke the code?
I broke the code.
The good old boy.
I guess, I don't
Good
know.
old boys
but-
club, when you said something about somebody.
And it's like, here's this guy that I've always really respected, and he's calling Ron a solid guy. And I just didn't see that from the very first time I met him. So I just.
Made you question.
Yeah. It made me question me too. And I was depressed. I guess that's where I go. But I'm going to own this, is that the thing that I have not done well during this 10 weeks is self-care. So self-care is really important to my well-being and my ability to have confidence in myself. And if I don't exercise and I don't sleep and I don't get the right foods in my body, all of a sudden I am not good enough
You're not,
I
you're
don't
questioning
deserve.
yourself. Mhm.
And so last night I left and I drove home and I was crying because I was like, here we are. I'm back to that feeling like, okay, this man that I just think just didn't treat me very well is taking my power, I guess, and makes me feel like I don't deserve it. And so it's like all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't deserve it. So I'm questioning myself and I'm getting really mad and I'm really tired. But I don't know what kind of stories are going or floating around now. I don't know what Ron knows. And it just was so important to me that you believed me.
Yeah, that's my takeaway too.
That it was just important to me that you believed that I had a problem and that it was real and it wasn't just, because I always question myself. I thank Stephanie for going, did you just see what he did? And I just am so, I don't know. But after, and further, I'm really wanting to I don't know how to reconcile this, so I've got to work through that. But it's scaring me because I have a meeting with my bishop in a month. I'm going back to school. I don't know who he knows in that.
I'm wondering if all priests and deacons, does everybody get along in the Redemptorist?
There's a lot of politics.
Is it the
church
politics that's scaring you?
I guess, and here's the thing.
Or is it just
I've always felt like that if you didn't get along with everybody in the world, that you were, I felt like you should have no enemies, and I'm realizing.
Jesus got along with everybody. How'd that work out for him?
He died.
He got killed.
I don't think he got along with everybody either. But if in my times of getting sleep and not, and getting exercise and taking care of myself and, just having some time with my husband and stuff, I have confidence. I have confidence to stand up to people, and which in the beginning, that's that first couple of weeks, that's when I said, look, that's before all of my self-care started flittering away. And I started eating cookies. I just ate a chocolate chip cookie. So.
I think that's a great parallel that you're naming, though.
Yeah.
That we can lose altitude and belief in ourselves and our ministry. We can let that other stuff get to us when we're not taking care of ourselves.
And I realized that when I went home. I just said, I'm in a really dark place right now that I haven't been in for a long time. And so it was because all of a sudden, all these people are out there talking about me. Ron's gotten his tendrils to everybody, and he's
you made this huge.
I've blown this up. He's
Try to
just like this
imagine
giant, this octopus, and he's going, this is, it's so, and for the first time in 9 months, I have gone an entire week and have not heard from Carrie.
Well.
That's a good thing or a bad thing.
9 months, I have not gone more than 3 days or 2 days without hearing from her.
Well, it solved one problem, I guess.
Until you see her at school with you.
She was not asked back. So anyway, it's just what is being said, and I'm trying to really be fair about it. I don't want to, because I think that makes me look bad if I go out and say, Ron is an asshole, and if you like him, and be like, I don't know. It's just, I think it makes me look bad to bash him, and it's really hard not to defend myself. And so, like I could have said yesterday, well, let me just tell you, Bruce, what's been going on.
Well, I think saying we did not get along is a fair statement.
Mm-hmm.
I had issues with Ron.
Right.
I didn't trust Ron. I had difficulty learning from Ron. There's many ways to say without your experience.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're not going to get along with everybody.
We defended him, and that was the thing that hurt, And it was because it wasn't nice. You know, I mean, he
you don't talk
defended.
bad about people. That's kind of
No.
one of your commandments, right?
No.
That you don't talk about people.
Right. He defended him and said, well, you know, he's going through some stuff right now, which I've said that to people.
So that echoes bad, that's okay to have bad behavior if you're, I'm playing devil's
I know,
advocate.
because I know that I've said that to somebody just recently. This person's going through a bad time, so cut him some slack. Well, no. I used to tell my youth this, no matter how much you're hurting, no matter how much you're, never excuses you from giving grace to others. You know, it's never excuse, whatever you're going through is not an excuse for bad behavior. We do it, I do it, you know, but it's just, anyway.
You're right.
This is, and I think hopefully in a, 5 months or 3 months, I will look back on this time and say, I'm thankful that this happened. Right now, I'm not there. Because I'm scared. I'm scared to go talk to the bishop. I'm scared to go back to my church. Because I don't even know who knows what there. You know, I know that my priest knows, but he's sworn to secrecy because I said it in a priest meeting. I just, I wanted to talk to him about what was happening. So, anyway, and I'm thinking about documentation and writing some things down so that I can at least feel clear about, my purpose is not to get this person fired. My person is not to ruin his life. It's to try to process it.
Well, and hopefully some change in behavior.
Right, uh-huh. Anyway. But last week was a crappy week, yes.
It was difficult for many of us.
But did you have a good week, Ken? Was it, it's probably, you were living, vicariously through us and having a crappy week because of us. I'm sorry.
You were.
Empathizing.
You
I
were.
was, thinking about, last Wednesday for a while, I, wrote about it, reflecting.
Uh-huh.
And, it's nothing I could say or do, I just had to, was there to support you both. And,
Thank you.
I mean, I had similar feelings, as we, kind of heard, as you shared bits and pieces throughout the summer, and I just, it was just a crappy situation from the get-go. It's not good way.
And I thought about this yesterday, if we were all down here, instead of going to the clinical sites, how different your experience might be from East. Because my experience has all of a sudden just completely a 180. It's hard because there's more serious illness, but it is a completely different experience. Just sort of the way you're being treated by the nurse. I don't know. It's just it's a different place.
Dynamics everywhere you go.
Different culture.
Different from south,
different.
East here.
I just feel like the person that is in authority, I guess maybe that's not the right way to say it, has a responsibility to create a learning environment that is kind, safe, not hostile, not toxic, to gentle maybe is the word. And, I when I think about the way that we've been talked to, and I just try to, in my wildest dreams, imagine you, Denise, Mark, there's 3 Marks, Jake.
There's 2 Jakes.
Amy.
2 Marks. 2
Marilyn,
Denise.
Angie, any of those people, can't imagine them talking to me that way. I mean, I try to imagine, somebody coming up in my face and doing that, or whatever, and I just can't. It's like, what did we do to deserve that? So anyway.
I think the other thing I have besides, empathizing with you, I feel bad to the patients too, that's out, that they have to be subjected to all that, and
Yeah.
that Ron will allow, if they were in from last week, shit show to go on. It's just kind of ridiculous that, who knows how long it's been going on.
Well,
I think the result is what you're seeing. It's
Yeah.
just a lack of staff
So,
connection
Still a lot
to
of-
chaplains or even confidence in.
right,
it's just, for me, it's a lot of feeling bad for you both,
Aw.
and feeling bad for patients there who had to endure all this. So, yeah.
Thank you. Good stuff.
Yeah.
We'll talk more. We'll have next week. Gotta run upstairs.
okay.
Okay.
So riding this afternoon, whether you
Yeah.
do it here or wherever, doesn't matter to me, so.
I'm just afraid to go home.
What are you gonna do?
I will see y'all Friday at 9 at Children's Mercy in the lobby.
In the lobby, okay. Did you want to put that in here?
The trash, yeah.
It's trash.
So you're on call tonight?
Yes. So I'm
But you're gonna go home and
gonna
relax.
try to go home maybe